They expected me to laugh when my son-in-law made the joke. That is what I remember most clearly. Not the cake with my name on it. Not the folded flag Chief Warren had placed beside the coffee urn because someone thought 30 years in the fire department deserved a patriotic centerpiece. Not even my daughter Emily sitting 2 chairs down from me with tears in her eyes, proud of her husband, proud of the room, proud of the retirement dinner she believed was honoring me. I remember the laugh. It rolled through the banquet room in small, polite waves after Mark Sullivan leaned into the microphone and said, 30 years is a long time to do anything. Some of the guys in this room weren't even born when Captain Kowalski first learned which end of a hose to hold. People chuckled because people do that when a man with a microphone tells them where to put their discomfort. I smiled enough to let them breathe. That was habit. On a bad fire scene, if the captain looks scared, everybody gets scared. If the captain stays calm, even when the roof is talking overhead and the smoke is crawling low across the floor, the crew keeps moving. I had spent most of my adult life keeping my face steady for younger men, so I did it again. I sat at the head table in my dress uniform with my hands folded in front of me and let my son-in-law turn my career into a punchline. "We're going to miss Joe," Mark said, lifting a paper cup of punch like he was offering a toast. Mostly because he remembers where everything is. He was here when half the building got installed. Another laugh. Not mean, not yet. A few firefighters looked at me first, checking to see if I was joining in. I gave them that small captain smile, the permission slip. Go ahead, boys, nobody has to be brave over a joke. Emily smiled up at Mark like he had hung the moon. That was the first thing that hurt. Not him, her. My daughter had her mother's eyes, and Diane had spent her life believing the best in people until the evidence finally stood in front of her and blocked the light. Emily had inherited that. I used to love it about her. That night I watched it protect the wrong man. Mark turned a page he did not need. I could see from where I sat that the paper was blank. "Now, I know some people get nervous about change," he said, "but this department is getting younger, faster, more flexible. Joe taught us a lot, and now we get to carry those lessons into this century." That one landed different. The room went quiet for half a second before a few people forced another laugh through it. Captain Randy Haskins looked down at his plate. Chief Warren reached for his water. Tommy Vega, one of my younger firefighters, stared hard at the folded napkin in front of him like it had answers written on it. Mark leaned closer to the microphone. "Let's be honest. Captain Kowalski has given everything he has, maybe a little more than he had left." No one laughed that time. The ice machine dropped a load in the kitchen and the sound carried across the room like a warning. Mark looked down at me, still smiling. His left hand tightened around the cup. I noticed that. Men who are only joking do not grip paper cups hard enough to bend them. "Seriously, Joe," he said, "you built something here. We're going to make sure we keep it moving forward." Forward, that was the word, not thank you, not respect, forward, away from me. The room accepted it because rooms usually accept the first confident version of a story. Someone clapped, then someone else. Then the applause became safe enough for everyone. Mark stepped away from the podium and walked over to me. I stood. He hugged me in front of everybody. His cheek touched mine. He smelled like aftershave and coffee. "Love you, Joe," he said loudly enough for the front table. Then low in my ear he said, "You deserve the rest." I looked at him. His smile stayed in place. His eyes did not. Emily stood and kissed my cheek. Wasn't that beautiful? I looked at my daughter, at Diane's eyes in her face, at the hope she had built around this man, and I said, it was something. She did not hear the difference. The dinner kept moving. Plates were cleared. Someone cut the cake. Men came by and shook my hand. "Hell of a career, Cap. Enjoy fishing. Don't be a stranger." Most of them meant well. I could tell by the way they touched my shoulder and moved away too fast. Good men are not always brave in public. Sometimes they know something is wrong, but they wait for another man to name it. Nobody named it that night. Mark worked the room after his speech. He laughed with the battalion chief. He put his arm around 2 younger firefighters. He bent down to talk to a little kid running between the tables. He was good at that. He had always been good at that. When Mark first came into the department, I told people he had potential. I said he listened. I said he could learn the work if he kept his ego in check. I vouched for him when a few people were not sure. That was years before he married Emily, or maybe it only felt that way. Near the end of the night, Randy Haskins came over and shook my hand. His palm was damp. "You all right?" he asked. "Fine." He held on half a second longer than a normal handshake. "Hell of a career, Joe." I nodded. His mouth opened once, then closed. He slapped my shoulder and walked away. I noticed that too. By the time I got home, the house was dark. I hung the dress uniform on the back of a kitchen chair instead of putting it away. The collar looked stiff and empty in the dim light. Diane's picture sat on the mantel in the living room. I could see the frame from where I stood at the sink drinking water from the tap. I did not tell her anything. That sounds foolish, maybe. After she died, I still talked to her some nights, not always out loud, just enough to keep the house from feeling like a sealed room. That night I could not. I kept hearing Mark's voice. "You deserve the rest." The department had called it restructuring, early retirement, respectful transition, a good package. After 30 years, people said maybe it was time. I had not fought it. That was my mistake. I had assumed my record spoke for itself. I had assumed the people who knew me would know me. That is a dangerous thing to assume when someone else starts talking before you enter the room. I slept maybe 2 hours. In the morning I shaved, put on a plain shirt and drove to department administration. No speech, no anger, just one question. The building smelled like floor cleaner and old paper. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Susan at the front desk looked up and smiled until she saw my face. "Morning, Joe." "Morning." Her hands moved toward the keyboard, then stopped. I had known Susan 20 years. She processed transfers, benefits, injury reports, overtime forms, shift changes, and quiet little pieces of truth most people never knew existed. She knew more about the department than half the brass and said less than all of them. I stood at the counter. "Who applied for the Station 42 captain opening?" Her face changed by a fraction. "That's not usually public until—" "I know." She looked past me toward the hallway, then back at the monitor. Her fingers moved, slowly. I watched her shoulders rise as she read what came up. "Susan." She swallowed. "Mark Sullivan submitted his application." I nodded once. Then she said the part she did not want to say. "It came in 3 weeks before your retirement was announced." She would not look at me when she said it. I walked out of administration with the same face I used walking out of burning houses. That is not courage. It is training. You do not let the young ones see your hands shake. You do not let the crowd know when the roof feels soft under your boots. You give clear orders and keep moving until there is somewhere private to feel it. I sat in my truck before I started the engine, 3 weeks before. That meant Mark had applied before I knew I was leaving. It meant someone had told him, or he had made sure there would be something to tell. The dinner changed shape in my mind. The speech was not bad taste. It was a closing argument. Joe was old. Joe was tired. Joe had given enough. Now move on. I drove to Station 42 because that was where my body knew to go. I parked around back near the dumpsters and the old supply entrance. The bay doors were open. I could hear rigged checks, compartment doors slamming, a radio crackling somewhere near the engine. It sounded like home from the outside. That made it worse. Dispatch kept daily working files in a small office off the back hall, not the official city archive. The working stuff, call notes, transfer sheets, equipment corrections. The small paper cuts that only matter when someone wants to bleed you with them. Maggie Chen sat at the second desk with a headset around her neck and a pencil tucked behind one ear. She was 22 and looked younger when she was scared. She saw me in the doorway and the color left her face. That told me more than any file could. "Captain," she said. "Morning, Maggie. I didn't know you were coming in. I'm not here official." Her eyes flicked toward the hallway behind me. I stepped inside and left the door half open. Closed doors make nervous people more nervous. "I need to ask you something." She nodded too fast. I kept my voice low. Did anybody ask you to start flagging my calls? The pencil fell from behind her ear and hit the desk. She reached for it, missed, and knocked a stack of forms sideways. Her hands shook badly enough that she pressed them flat against the desktop. I did not speak. Silence will pull truth out of a room faster than pressure. Most people rush to fill it because they cannot stand hearing their own breathing. Maggie stared at the forms. I didn't know what it was for. Something in my chest went still. What did he ask you to flag? She closed her eyes. Late log entries. Equipment notes. Any call where your name was attached and there was a correction after the fact. Minor turnout questions. Stuff that usually gets cleaned up by the end of shift. Who asked? She did not answer. I already knew, but she had to say it. Maggie. Her mouth folded in like she was trying not to cry. Mark. The hallway outside got loud for a second. Someone dropped a tool in the bay and laughter followed it. Normal station noise. Normal men on a normal morning. Inside that little office, Maggie looked like she was waiting for punishment. He said it was for a retirement review, she whispered. He said the department needed everything clean. He said you were probably going to fight the transition, and people upstairs wanted the record accurate. How long? She shook her head. I don't know. Maggie. Almost a year. There it was, not a bad week, not a misunderstanding, a pattern. She started crying then, silently at first. Tears dropped straight onto the papers in front of her. I'm sorry, Captain, I swear I didn't know. He made it sound official. He said everyone knew. He said I'd look careless if I didn't help. Mark had always known who to lean on, not the strongest person in the room, the one still learning who had power and who only acted like they did. I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Listen to me, I said. You made a mistake, but you didn't build this. She looked up then, her eyes were red. Is he going to know I told you? Not from me. But if this comes out. I know. She wiped her face with both hands and looked ashamed of the tears. That bothered me more than the confession. She was a kid sitting in a room full of forms, believing she had helped bury a man's career because someone older and smoother told her it was normal. I stood. Thank you for telling me. She nodded, but she did not look relieved. At the door she said, Captain. I turned. He always asked in person, never email, never message. He'd just come by, lean on the desk, smile like it was nothing. That sounded like Mark. By evening I was sitting in Randy Haskins's office at Station 41 while he poured coffee neither of us wanted. Randy had been a captain almost as long as I had. Big shoulders, bad knees, gray mustache. The kind of man who could tell a rookie to clean a toilet and make it sound like fatherly advice. He handed me a mug and did not sit down right away. You talked to Maggie, he said, so word had traveled. I did. He looked out through the office glass at his bay. I figured you would. I held the mug in both hands. It was too hot. I did not set it down. Did Mark talk to you about me? Randy let out a breath through his nose. Yeah. How often? He rubbed the back of his neck. Every few weeks. For how long? He looked at me then, and his face had aged since the dinner. About a year. Same length, same quiet knife. What did he say? Randy sat behind his desk. The chair creaked under him. Little things, that was the point, I think, never came in swinging. Just comments. You notice Joe getting slower. You think he's still sharp on command. I worry about him since Diane passed. Stuff like that. I looked down at the coffee. There are names people should not use when they are building a lie. Diane was one of them. Randy kept talking because now that he had started, stopping would have made him feel worse. He'd say it like concern, like family, like he hated even bringing it up. And I'd tell him you were fine, Joe, every time. But you didn't tell me. His eyes dropped. No. The word sat between us. I thought it was son-in-law stuff, he said. Young guy wanting room, maybe frustrated. I didn't think he was feeding it upward. Did he talk to Warren? Randy's jaw moved. I don't know. I know he talked to people who talked to Warren. That was enough. A whisper campaign does not need one loud voice, it needs repetition. Same concern, different rooms. Same doubt, different ears. By the time it reaches authority, it sounds like common knowledge. Randy pushed his coffee away. I should have told you sooner. Yes, I said. He took it without flinching. Then he nodded. I'll tell anyone who asks. You sure? I should have shut it down. I didn't, but I'll tell the truth now. I stood up. Randy stood too. For a second, neither of us moved. 30 years in the work teaches men how to stand near pain without touching it. At the door, he said, Joe. I turned back. His voice dropped. If Mark talked to Maggie and talked to me, he talked to others. I know. But no, Randy said. I mean somebody younger, somebody he could scare. I thought of the retirement dinner, the young firefighters laughing too fast, the way Tommy Vega had kept his eyes on his plate when Mark said the department was getting younger. Tommy Vega did not answer my first call, or my second. That was not like him. Tommy was young but squared away, returned calls, showed up early, cleaned tools without being told twice. He had the nervous energy that can turn a firefighter good if the right people teach him, and get him hurt if the wrong people do. I left one message. Tommy, it's Captain Kowalski. I need 10 minutes, not at the station. He called back 15 minutes later. Everything okay, Cap? No. There was a pause. Where? We met at a diner off the highway. Cracked red booths. Coffee that tasted like it had been on duty since sunrise. It was late enough that the dinner crowd was gone. A waitress wiped the same counter twice and pretended not to listen. Tommy came in wearing a ball cap low over his eyes. That told me enough before he sat down. He slid into the booth across from me and kept both hands around a glass of water. Built like he could carry a refrigerator by himself, shoulders tucked in like he wanted to take up less room. You talked to Randy? He asked. I did. His throat moved. Maggie too. Yes. He stared at the tabletop. A torn sugar packet sat near his elbow. He lined up the ripped edges with his thumb like it mattered. I did not start with Mark. How's your mother? That got him to look up. She's okay, better, still hates physical therapy. Good. You didn't call me here to ask about my mom. No. 2 years earlier, Tommy had gone through a kitchen floor on a house fire. Bad construction, too much heat underneath. I caught his harness before he dropped all the way and 2 men hauled us both back. That kind of thing creates a debt nobody talks about because talking cheapens it. Tommy remembered. I could see it in his face. Did Mark come to you about me? Tommy sat back, not far, just enough to create space between himself and the question. I don't want trouble, Cap. I know. I've got time left here, a lot of it. I know that too. He rubbed both hands over his face and looked toward the window. A pickup passed through the lot, headlights washing across his face for a second. He looked tired. He said people might ask. Who might ask? Chiefs, captains, whoever. He said there were concerns about you. The waitress came by with coffee. Neither of us touched it until she left. What kind of concerns? Tommy gave a small laugh with no humor in it. Same stuff everybody already knows, I guess. That you're old school, that you don't like changes, that you were missing things after your wife died. He looked at me quick after that last part. I'm sorry. I nodded. People think apologies make words smaller. They do not. What did he want you to say? Tommy's hands tightened around the glass. That I noticed things. Did you? No. Did you tell him that? Yeah. What did he say? Tommy looked out the window again. He said I should think harder. There it was, not concern, instruction. He said I wanted to make lieutenant someday, right? Said guys who understand the future of the department move up faster than guys who stay loyal to the past. The coffee on the table had gone cold. He threatened you. Tommy's mouth tightened. He didn't say it like that. They never do. He covered his face with one hand. For a moment he looked less like a firefighter and more like a boy who had been handed a man's problem before he knew where to put it. "I didn't lie," he said. "Not to Warren, not to anyone, but I didn't stop him either." "No." He looked at me. I did not soften it. "You let him scare you." The words hurt him. I saw it. "They needed to." "Yeah," he said quietly. "I did." I left the diner with 3 witnesses and no clean path. That is something people do not understand about truth. They talk about it like it is a light switch. Flip it on, darkness gone. Simple. It is not simple. Truth costs people. Maggie could lose the little safety she had. Randy would have to admit he had let a lie grow beside him. Tommy would have to stand up against a man who might become his captain. Emily would have to learn that the husband she loved had used her dead mother's name as a tool. And me, I had already lost the job. That part was over. What I was deciding now was whether I was willing to lose the easy version of my daughter too. Emily called the next afternoon. I was in the kitchen fixing a cabinet hinge Diane had asked me to repair 2 years before she died. I had not touched it until that day. Grief makes strange little shrines out of ordinary things. "Dad," she said, "Mark told me you came by administration." I set the screwdriver down. "Did he?" "He said you're upset." "I am." "He said you're asking questions that could hurt people." There it was, Mark's voice coming through my daughter's mouth. I closed my eyes. "Emily, listen to me." "No, Dad, you listen. I love you, you know that. But Mark has been trying to handle this gently. He said you were having a hard time letting go." I looked toward the living room. Diane's picture faced the kitchen from the mantel. I could not see her expression from that distance, only the frame. "Did he tell you he applied for my job before I knew I was leaving?" Silence. "He said that was complicated." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because complicated is what guilty people call things that are simple. "He has been talking about me for a year, Em." "Dad, he used your mother's death to make people think I was slipping." Her breath caught. Then her voice hardened in that way people get when pain is too close and denial is the only shield they can reach. "Don't do that. I'm telling you the truth. You're making me choose." "No." "Yes, you are." That stopped me, because maybe she was right. Not because I wanted to, but because Mark had built it that way. Some traps are designed so that the first honest word sounds like an attack. She whispered, "Just let it go, for me." The house went quiet. I thought about Maggie's shaking hands, Randy staring into coffee he did not want, Tommy in that diner built like a bull and scared like a boy. I thought about Diane. Then I thought about Emily as a little girl in pink rain boots waiting in the driveway after my 24-hour shifts. She used to run before I even got out of the truck. "For me, Dad," she said again, "I could have stopped there. That was the cleanest place to quit. Let Mark take the job. Let the station believe whatever made them comfortable. Let Emily keep the marriage she thought she had. Maybe peace is just the lie everybody agrees to live inside." "I love you too, Em," I said. She waited for more. I did not give it to her. After we hung up, I stood there with the phone in my hand until the screen went dark. Then I called Maggie. She answered like she already knew why. "Captain, I need to ask something hard." The line went quiet. "Okay. You don't have to say yes." That mattered. People with power say that all the time when they do not mean it. I needed her to hear that I did. "I'm going to Station 42 tomorrow at shift change," I said. "I'm going to say what happened, not in a hearing, not behind a desk, in the common room, in front of the crew." I heard her breathing change. "Will Mark be there?" "Yes. I can't lose this job." "I know. I'm not a firefighter. I don't have people protecting me. If he gets mad, he can make my life impossible." "He might try." Her voice trembled. "That is not comforting." "No." I sat at the kitchen table. The cabinet hinge was still half fixed behind me. "Maggie, all I'm asking is that you tell the truth, same as you told me, nothing more." What if my voice shakes? Then it shakes. What if I cry? Then you cry. She was silent so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, I did the wrong thing first. Yes. She made a sound that was almost a laugh and almost a sob. I did not rescue her from it. Guilt is not always something you take away from people. Sometimes it is the part of them that still works. I'll come, she said. You sure? No. That was the bravest answer she could have given. Randy picked up on the first ring. Tell me where and when. Station 42, shift change tomorrow. You want me there before or after you start? Before, stay back until I call on you. You know this gets ugly. Yes. Mark won't just stand there and take it. I know. Randy was quiet a second. Good. Good. People need to see him fight, Randy said. They need to see what he looks like when the nice act stops working. Tommy took the longest. He did not answer when I called. Then he texted, can I call in 5? I stared at that message for 10 minutes. When the phone rang, I was standing in front of Diane's picture. Cap, he said, you all right? No. I waited. My girlfriend says I should stay out of it. She loves you. She says this isn't my fight. She's wrong. I heard him swallow. She said you already lost your job. I still have mine. That one landed. She was not cruel, she was practical. People with a lot to lose can sound selfish when they are really just scared. She's trying to protect you, I said. Yeah. So am I. How? I looked at Diane's picture. Her smile in that photo was from Emily's wedding. Mark stood 3 people away from her in the original, but I had cropped him out after the funeral, not out of anger back then. The frame was small. I can't promise nothing happens, I said. I won't insult you by pretending I can, but I can promise you won't be standing alone. Tommy said nothing. He threatened you because he thought fear would keep you useful. Tomorrow you decide if he was right. That was harder than comfort, harder to say and harder to hear. His voice came back low. What do I say? The truth. That's it. That's it. He let out a long breath. Okay. Okay meaning what? Okay meaning I'll stand up. There it was. A thin thread, not bright, not clean, but real enough to hold. I did not sleep that night. By morning, Mark thought he had won. I knew because people like Mark cannot resist a victory lap. Around noon, I drove past Station 42 and saw him in the bay with 3 firefighters around him. Coffee in one hand, one boot up on the bumper of the engine, talking like the job was already his. The younger guys laughed at something he said. He looked comfortable. That helped me. A man who thinks the fight is over does not protect his ribs. I went home and ironed my working uniform, not the dress uniform from the dinner. That one still hung on the chair, collar stiff, sleeves empty. I wanted no ceremony this time, no cake. No microphone handed over by someone else, just the shirt I had worn into smoke. Emily called while I was buttoning it. For 1 second I thought about letting it ring. Then I answered, Hey, sweetheart. She sounded better, too cheerful, forced cheerful. Dad, Mark, and I were talking. We want you to come over this weekend for dinner. Nothing heavy, just us. I think it would be good. I looked at myself in the bedroom mirror. Gray hair, deep lines. Uniform still fitting, though not the way it used to. Dinner. Yeah. Behind her voice I heard hope. She thought she was building a bridge. She did not know Mark had already soaked the wood. I'd like that, I said. Good. She waited like she wanted me to apologize without making her ask. Instead I said, after tonight, maybe we all need to talk. Her voice changed. What's tonight? Something at the station. What's something? I fastened the last button. I'll call you after. Dad. I love you, Em. She did not say it back right away. That pause hurt more than I expected. Then softer, I love you too. I hung up and stood in the quiet bedroom. On the dresser was an old photo of Emily at 8 years old wearing my helmet. It had slipped down over her eyes. Diane had written on the back, "Future Chief, maybe." I picked it up, then put it down. There was no clean way through this. That had been the lie I kept looking for. A path where Emily understood Mark was exposed, the witnesses stayed safe, and I got to keep the good parts of my family untouched. No such path existed. I drove to Station 42 just before shift change. The sun was low enough to hit the windshield straight on. I passed the diner where Tommy told me the truth, past the coffee shop where I had once bought Mark lunch and told him he had a future, past administration where Susan could not look at me. All of it had been quiet until now. I parked behind the station. For a minute I sat with both hands on the wheel, then I got out. I was not going in as a guest. I was not going in as the old captain they had retired with cake and polite applause. I was going in wearing my working uniform. As a captain, one last time. The common room at Station 42 was loud when I walked in. Men talking over each other, chairs scraping linoleum, a coffee pot choking out its last cup, somebody laughing near the bulletin board. The day crew was tired. The night crew was waking up. Shift change always had that loose feel, like a handoff before the real work started. Then one person saw me, then another. Noise does not stop all at once in a firehouse. It dies in pieces. A voice dropped near the sink. A chair leg froze halfway across the floor. Somebody set down a mug too carefully. Mark stood by the counter with coffee in his hand, relaxed, clean shirt. One boot crossed over the other. He looked like a man waiting for his future to arrive. Chief Warren was there too, near the doorway to the hall. He saw me and did not move. Good, I did not need saving. I stepped into the middle of the room. "I need 5 minutes," I said. Nobody asked for what. Mark smiled, not big, just enough. "Joe," he said, "maybe this isn't the time." That's what I thought at my retirement dinner. The room went still. Mark's smile held, but the skin around his eyes tightened. I looked at the crew. Some of them had been at that dinner. Some had laughed. Some had looked away. A few younger ones stared at the floor already, like they knew this was about to cost somebody something. "I sat in this room a long time," I said. "I gave orders here, took calls here, sent people home safe from here, so I'm going to say this here." Mark put his cup down, careful. I turned my head toward him. "No." One word. It landed harder than I expected. I looked back at the room. I didn't retire because it was time. I was pushed. And the reason I was pushed is because Mark Sullivan spent close to a year telling people I was slipping. Mark laughed once. It sounded good. That was the danger, clear, offended, almost believable. "This is insane," he said. "You hear yourself." I kept going. He said I was slow, said I wasn't sharp, said grief had changed me, said he was worried. Mark looked around the room, letting them see his face. "This is what I warned people about," he said. "He can't handle being done." A couple men shifted. There it was, the old story, dressed and ready. I nodded once. Maggie. She stood from the back corner. Most of the crew had not noticed her until then. Civilian polo. Hair pulled back. Hands locked in front of her like she was holding herself together by force. Mark's face changed, just a little. "Maggie," he said, soft warning in her name. She flinched. I hated him for that. Her voice shook when she spoke. "Mark came to dispatch and asked me to flag things connected to Captain Kowalski. Late corrections, equipment notes, small things that usually didn't go anywhere." Mark shook his head. "That's not true." Maggie looked at the floor. Then she forced her eyes up. "You told me it was for a retirement review. You said people upstairs wanted the record clean." "That is not what I said." "You came in person every time," she said. "You never emailed, never sent a message. You leaned on my desk and smiled, and made it sound like I'd be in trouble if I didn't." Her voice broke on the last word. Nobody moved. Maggie sat down fast, like her legs had given up. Mark pointed at me. "You put her up to that." "No," Randy Haskins said. He stood near the side wall. Randy was not dramatic, never had been. He just got up, set his hands on the back of a chair, and looked at Mark like he was tired of carrying something foul. "You came to me too," Randy said. "Every few weeks, for about a year." Mark turned. Randy, don't. That's what I should have said to you, Randy answered. A year ago. The room took that in. Randy's voice stayed flat. You asked if I noticed Joe slowing down, asked if I thought he was still sharp. Brought up Diane like grief was something you could use in a promotion packet. My hands closed at my sides. Mark's face flushed. I was concerned about family. No, Randy said. You were building a case. Mark looked toward Chief Warren. Chief, this is ridiculous. They're twisting conversations because Joe can't accept retirement. Chief Warren said nothing. His silence put a crack through Mark's confidence. Mark turned back to the room. You all know how this works. People talk. People worry. That doesn't make it some conspiracy. He was still fighting, still almost good at it. Then Tommy stood. He had been sitting at the far table with his cap in his hands. When he got up, the chair behind him scraped loud enough to make two men turn. His face was pale. Mark saw him and went completely still. Tommy's voice came out rough. He told me to lie. No one breathed. Mark said, Tommy. Tommy shook his head. No, I'm talking now. His hands trembled around the cap. He told me if anybody asked about Captain Kowalski, I should say I noticed things. I told him I didn't notice anything. He told me to think harder. Mark's mouth opened, but Tommy kept going. He said I wanted to make lieutenant someday, right? The room changed. I cannot explain it better than that. Shoulders shifted. Eyes moved off Mark. Men who had been watching me started watching Tommy because Tommy had no reason to stand there except fear, and fear like that tells the truth before words do. Mark stepped toward him. You're lying. Tommy's voice cracked, but he did not sit down. I'm doing this because it's true and you know it. Mark looked around for help. No one gave him any. The coffee pot clicked off behind him. Small sound. Loud room. He turned to me then and the charm was gone. You bitter old man, he said. You couldn't stand that I earned something without you. I looked at him. You didn't earn this. His jaw worked. For a second I thought he might swing at me. Part of me wished he would. That would have made it simple, but Mark was not simple. He looked around the room one last time, measuring what was left. There was nothing. Chief Warren still had not spoken. Randy stared at the floor. Maggie wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Tommy stood shaking but standing. The crew's silence was the verdict. Mark picked up his coffee like he needed something to do with his hands. The cup was empty. He set it down again. Nobody laughed. Nobody rescued him. Nobody followed when he walked out. I stayed there one more second, not to enjoy it. There was nothing to enjoy. Then I turned and walked out the same door I came in. Nobody stopped me. Nobody shook my hand. That was fine. The next morning, Chief Warren called. His voice sounded older than it had in years. Mark withdrew his application. I said nothing. There's going to be an internal review. Good. Joe. I waited. I should have asked better questions. There are apologies that come too late to fix the thing but still matter because they name it. Yes, I said. He took it. The department owes you a conversation. The department owes Maggie protection, I said, and Tommy, and anyone else. Mark leaned on. Warren was quiet. You're right. I know. I hung up before he could make it sound ceremonial. That afternoon, Emily came to my house. She did not call first. I saw her car pull into the driveway and watched her sit there with both hands on the wheel for almost a full minute. When she came in, her eyes were swollen. She looked around the living room like she had grown up there and had never seen it before. Diane's picture sat on the mantel between us. Is it true? She asked. I had already answered that question on the phone the night before. She needed to ask it in the room. Yes. Her face tightened. All of it. Enough of it. She pressed her fingers to her mouth. For a second, she looked like the little girl in pink rain boots again, standing in the driveway because the world had done something she did not understand. Why didn't you tell me first? Because Mark had already built a room inside her head and put me in the corner of it. Because she would have heard every word through his voice. Because I was afraid of losing the last piece of Diane I had left. I said, You wouldn't have believed me." She looked at me then. That was the worst part. She knew I was right. Her eyes filled. "I wanted to." "I know. I asked you to let it go." "You did. And you didn't." "No." She sat down on the couch and covered her face. I wanted to sit beside her. I wanted to put my arm around her the way I did when she was small and thunder scared her. But this pain was not one I could pull away from her. Some pain has to finish telling the truth. "I don't know what happens now," she said. "With Mark." She nodded. "I can't answer that for you." "I know." She looked toward Diane's picture. Mom would have known what to say. That broke something small in me. "Your mother would have made tea," I said. Then she would have said something so plain it hurt. Emily gave a weak laugh through tears. "Probably." We sat in the quiet for a while. Outside, a truck passed. The refrigerator hummed. The house stayed standing, which is more than you can ask from some days. Finally, Emily said, "I am angry at you." "I know. And I'm angry at him." "You should be. And I hate that both of those things are true." I nodded. "That's family." She wiped her eyes. "Do you feel better?" I thought about the common room, Maggie's shaking voice, Randy's late courage, Tommy standing with his cap crushed in his hands, Mark walking out alone because the room finally understood him. Then I thought about Emily's voice on the phone. "Tell me it's not true." "No," I said, "not better." She looked at me. "Then why do it?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, hands clasped. Because better was never the point. She waited. "I did it because a man like Mark does not stop at one person. I did it because Maggie deserved to know she wasn't trapped. Tommy deserved to learn fear doesn't get to make every decision. Randy deserved the chance to tell the truth before retirement turned his silence permanent. I looked at my daughter. And you deserve to know who you married, even if you hate me for the way you found out." She cried again then, but quieter. When she left, she hugged me at the door. Not long, not easy, but real. "I love you, Dad," she said. "I love you too, Em." She drove away without looking back. That night I finally put the dress uniform away. I carried it from the kitchen chair to the bedroom closet. I brushed a few cake crumbs off the sleeve from the retirement dinner and stood there with the hanger in my hand. 30 years. Men like to talk about endings like they arrive clean. Last shift, last call, last salute, last speech. They do not. Some endings come with a paper cup of punch and a man smiling while he tries to bury you. Some endings come with your daughter crying in your living room. Some endings leave you standing in a quiet house, not victorious, not ruined, just older and clearer than you were before. I hung the uniform in the closet and shut the door. Then I walked into the living room and stood in front of Diane's picture. "I handled it," I said. For the first time in days, the house did not feel like it was holding its breath. Mark Sullivan lost the captain's chair before he ever sat in it. The review found enough people willing to talk once the first 3 had spoken. That's how truth works sometimes. It does not arrive as a roar. It starts with one shaking voice, then another, until the room cannot pretend it hears nothing. Maggie kept her job. Tommy did too. Randy retired 6 months later with a dinner that had no microphone until dessert, and when he made his own speech, he looked right at me and said, "Some men teach you how to enter a fire. Some teach you how to leave one with your name intact." I did laugh that time. Emily and I are still working on it. That is the honest ending. Not clean, not wrapped in a bow. Some Sundays she comes by with coffee. Some Sundays she does not. She is still married as I tell this, though Mark moved out for a while, and I do not ask questions she is not ready to answer. I have learned that revenge is not always about watching someone fall. Sometimes it is about standing still long enough for the lie to collapse without you holding it up. Mark thought my silence meant I was finished. He forgot what every firefighter learns early. Quiet does not mean safe. Sometimes quiet means the fire has found air.